Welcome back, everybody. This is Justin with Calvary Chapel RV Travelers. Today we are in St. Anthony's Cemetery here in Effington, Illinois. It is primarily a Catholic cemetery, beautifully laid out, absolutely beautiful here. As I was walking through here looking for stories, I came upon one that's probably going to take quite a while to cover. This is actually a monument to St. Anthony's Hospital fire that happened in 1949, April 4th. And the interesting thing about this fire was it killed 74 people simply because it went through the cemetery, the hospital so quickly. We're in a cemetery. The interesting thing about this too is it started shortly before midnight, and so there wasn't a lot of staff manning the hospital at that time. Everybody, so I'm back here at the campground because the cemetery was pretty busy. There was a lot of cars coming in and out. The caretaker was there, and oftentimes the caretakers don't like videos being done in a cemetery, even though we're bringing honor to the dead and keeping their stories alive. Some just have an issue with that. And so I thought what I would do is come back to the campground and continue the story about the fire at St. Anthony's. And so what we'll do is I'll go ahead and continue with that. I'm going to show you some pictures as we go along. So the fire had broken out on April 4th, just before midnight. The hospital was operated by the Sisters of St. Francis, who lived next door in a house that was primarily just for nuns. In fact, males normally are not allowed in those homes where nuns, reside. The building had about 100 beds in it, and it was constructed mainly out of wooden brick. And parts of the building dated back to 1876. It had been added onto as Effingham had grown, but by 1949, the town had actually outgrown the hospital, and so there was a lot of contributors to why this hospital went up so fast. And one of those was it was covered with oilcloth fabrics. It was very combustible material, and the soundproofing tiles were very combustible, and this hospital lacked sprinkler systems. It hadn't been upgraded with any kind of fire detection or alarm systems. When the fire had broken out, one of the nuns had called a man by the name of Frank Reyes, and he was actually alerted before the fire department. And he came and tried to put this fire out with a fire extinguisher by going to each floor and spraying down into a laundry chute. And the problem with that is when you have an open construction building, all that air is going through, and it's providing oxygen for a fire, which that's one of the elements of fire. The other one is fuel, and you had this oil cloth that was all over the walls of the hospital, and these soundproofing tiles that were highly combustible. So there was plenty of fuel for this fire. So, he was there around 11:30 that night trying to put this thing out, and it just overtook him. And there was, like I said, there was no sprinkler systems, there was no alarm systems. And one of the sisters had called the fire department, but by the time they got there, the roof had already caved in. And so there was no way they could really save the structure or even try to get in to save any of the people, which by that time, by 1949, there was more beds. There was 116 patients and nurses actually in there. And there was 10 staff at that time. And normally at nighttime, there's a lot less staff than there are during the daytime, which that's not the case anymore in any hospital. You have the same amount of staff, other than business staff. But as far as nurses, you have the same amount, whether, 24 hours a day. And during this fire, there was 11 infants and a nun that had stayed with them that had perished. And, you know, for the people on the first floor, it was pretty easy to get them out. But there was people that were in traction. There was people that had casts that couldn't get out. There was people that were in restraints that couldn't get out. All these people, you know, going back and forth, in and out, pulling people out of the hospital. But at a point in time, the fire just got so hot and so consuming that they were not able to continue to go back in. Some actually perished when they went back in to get somebody else. And people that were on the second and third floor that had jumped ended up with long-lasting injuries. There were 26 men that had showed up on the fire department, the volunteer fire department, by the way. But by the time they got there, the roof had already caved in, and this was within 10 minutes of the fire starting. That's a fast-moving fire. Now, as the news articles were coming out, there was one news article I found that said there was 50, and then another one that said there was 60 dead. And by the time it was all said and done and they had cleaned up the entire area, they had counted 74 that had perished, including patients, nurses, nuns, a priest, and Frank Reyes, the hospital's engineer, who ran into the flames to try to rescue his wife. A historian for the Effington County Museum stated that about 88% of the victims were either female or under the age of 12 years old. Now, in the aftermath, the Red Cross had came in and set up an inquiry bureau to help families identify their loved ones. And they also helped collect blood, plasma, blankets, and other medical and relief supplies were donated to the victims through the Red Cross. Well, then later, there was funds that were raised to build a new hospital through a letter campaign, which was set up by about 293,000 letters that were sent out in reference of the death of Nurse Fran Riley. And within 2 weeks of the campaign, they had raised $300,000. By the end of it, they had raised $563,000 by the end of the summer to build this new hospital. The cause of the fire still remains to be unknown, but investigators quickly identified that many of the safety deficiencies at St. Anthony's Hospital was due to the lack of, like, sprinkler systems, alarm systems, walls that were built to withstand heat and oxygen to rip through the place. And so the main thing is, what through the investigation, they identified many fire hazards, which when they went to build the new hospital, they incorporated a lot of those. Actually, as far as I know, all of them. The United States had made many of fire protection implements that are in that standard today. So, our mistakes from the past helped us to improve on today. So, if there's a fire that breaks out in a hospital today, the likelihood of it ripping through and demolishing the entire thing is about 100% impossible because of the fire escapes we have today, because of the sprinkler systems. There are, if you walk through a hospital now, and you may notice that now, there are fire hoses throughout the whole place. So you can bust the glass and grab a hose and start spraying something down. You may have not have noticed it before, but now that you've seen this video, you may notice that now.